Hello and welcome to my podcast, Up Your Total Glow, your podcast for your body, mind, and soul to support, guide, and empower you to uncover your most glowing, healthiest, and feel good version of you. I am super excited that you're here because if you ask me, there's nothing that looks and feels better. In today's episode, I'm speaking with the wonderful Sarah Wilson. Sarah is a podcaster and wellness coach. At age 42, she faced a life-altering moment with a heart attack. This served her as a very poignant wake-up call. As a devoted mother, she was accustomed to placing her own needs last. However, this made her realize the importance of prioritizing her self-care and needs. In this very beautiful interview, Sarah shares with us the messy truth about having a heart attack so young. She also tells us why it is important to prioritize yourself if it is your goal to be an amazing mom, partner, and glow with vitality and health. If you are ready to embrace life's chaos and find beauty in self-discovery, then this episode is a must listen for you. Please enjoy. Here she is, the amazing Sarah Wilson. Hello and welcome, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy and excited to be in this space. I absolutely love your podcast, so this is very exciting for me.
Oh, thank you very much. I am very excited to chat to you and I can't wait to jump into this conversation. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
To hit it off, tell us, what are you truly passionate about?
Oh, that's such a great question. I think right now, obviously, being a mom, I love being a mom. That's just one of the best things I could ever do, and I just absolutely love it. But aside from that, I think right now, the thing I'm really passionate about is trying to bring awareness to women to not only give themselves permission to have the self-care that they need, but to educate themselves on the dangers that cardiac events can be towards women. And I think not enough women know about it. It's always, we talk about the widowmaker with men, they always have the heart complications and things like that. But women, they have their own risk that's cumulative, and it starts in young adolescence when we start our menstrual cycle, and it starts to compound and grow. And I don't think enough women know about that. And I'm really passionate of trying to get that message out there and help women, learn what they can do to combat that.
Mm, I love it. And I can't wait to dive more into this. And I also believe that, the way we are living right now, this craziness that we are taking upon us every day is also contributing to what's going on with our cardiovascular health. I do think that women in a different age of time had way healthier cardiovascular systems because they were moving about and they were, let's be very frank, not eating so much shit. Okay.
No, 100%, 100%. And think that one of the key things that you stated was the movement part of it. We didn't have to make separate time to go to the gym because the lifestyle that we had was more physical. It wasn't just the men working in the fields and doing the food. We were doing those things as well, and gardening and being with nature. And I think that's a side subject. I think being out in the sun and nature, it's been sort of put upon at least the current generation of being in the sun is bad and you need to protect yourself from it, when
Yeah.
that's not it at all. We need that so desperately. And I think we've all sort of moved inside, migrated inside to that way of life. And now we're, paying money to go walk in a gym to make sure we're exercising. And that's it. There has to be, and I'm not saying that's bad, but we should be outside a majority of our day. That's how we're built. And so to shelter us from that, we're losing the game.
100%. I totally agree. And not only being outside, but moving. Like what you said, it's
Movement.
amazing that we go to the gym and do these things, but like 1 hour at the gym and then sitting all day is not quite what really
It's
serves
not
our bodies.
right.
This
Right.
1 hour can't make up for what our bodies truly need. So we need so much more than that. But I would love to hear, why are you particularly passionate about cardiovascular health?
Yes. So from my own experience, 6 days before I turned 43 years old, and now granted that's not very young, but it is young if you think about it. I
It is
suffered a
young.
massive heart attack. Yeah. I suffered a massive heart attack. I actually thought I was having some sort of panic attack. So as moms and women do, drove myself to the hospital, and the orderly hooked me up to the machine, kind of checked all my vitals, and he gets this wave of just all the blood drains out of him.
Mm,
And he says, "Ma'am, you're in the middle of having a massive heart attack," and disappears. And as he comes back, I have like 9 people ascend on me, sticking. I've got 2 IVs out of me. They've taken everything off me. They're rushing me to the cath lab. And I'm awake for the whole procedure. They put in 2 stents. And that moment, and it's probably cliche, but that moment as I'm laying there and you're seeing really your life flash before, you're thinking of your children, your husband, your whole entire family. And what did your life mean to you? What are you leaving behind is sort of sitting with me as I'm, half out of it and they're running around me and doing the things that they're doing. I knew when I was able to come to and just have my thoughts about me that this couldn't be it. Where did I go wrong? What did I do wrong? And how can I take back the power? How can I take back the control? And
mm,
so it brought on this whole new way of eating and learning and even before that, I felt so guilty of ever doing anything for myself. Self-care was not in my routine. All of my energy went to my family, and I'm not resentful of that, but I didn't know any better. I think that's the sort of underlying thing that gets put on women. You just don't know. You just take care of the people around you that you love, and you do. And I was missing a big piece for myself, the biggest piece. And now coming full circle, realizing that I'm a better mom, I'm a better caretaker, I'm better for taking back some of that time for myself and putting it into me, and I can pour more out because of that. And
mm,
I was doing it so completely wrong before that.
mm. 100% agreed. And I can relate to so many things that you just said. So I would like to start with your big bang journey. Um, and very different and not as drastic. But I remember very well when I was giving birth to my first child. Um, so first of all, they told us, when you have regularly contractions, call the nurse so that she can ask you questions and assist with where are you at. So we did that. I was chatting away with the nurse. She said, "Oh, you're days away from giving birth." Okay, so we stayed at home, and my husband still went away. And while he was away, um, I had fresh blood, and everyone says when you have fresh blood, you need to go to the hospital right now.
Mhm.
Um, so he came. I was waiting patiently. So he came back. I said, "Honey, I don't want to shock you, but I think let's go right now." He was like, "Oh, can't we eat before?" No, let's go. We're going to the hospital, and I'm having contractions, but everyone tells you, this is so excruciatingly painful. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, that's normal. I hope I don't have to be through this like for the next 2 days or something. We come to the hospital, they put me aside, and this is what reminds me so much of what you said, like in how we actually put ourselves back and are just able to um, tolerate. And this is not the idea, I think. But okay, back to my story. Um, so they put me on measurements and stuff and go away because they were crazily busy, lots of deliveries. My water breaks, luckily, and I rip everything out and I just say, I need to go to the toilet. The nurse comes and says, oh, we put you back on. And I say, no, I'm going to go to the bathroom now. I can't take it. And finally she checks and she like goes all white and like the baby was right there.
Mm.
Um, and you know, I think that's a beautiful story because obviously I'm giving birth, like I'm not having a heart
Sure.
attack. But I think
Sure.
the point that I'm trying to make is we are so used to taking everyone else's needs first, to suppressing and to getting on with, you know, what we need to get on with. And I don't think that's quite right. We need to be
No.
much more back in our bodies. And as you said, are allowed to take care of ourselves, to really nourish ourselves so that we then, because we are the center of society, let's name it, um,
Mhm.
that we then can really nourish the world around us as best as we can. And yet, there is still so much guilt about this. And yet, we learn to nourish everyone else first. And
Mhm.
yes, of course, when we have a young baby, of course, we need to make sure we
Sure.
attend to the needs of the baby. But we also need to make sure we're staying okay. We are not draining ourselves. And this is something we don't learn. So this is why I absolutely love your story. Don't get me wrong. I don't love what happened to you.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
think you are here on a mission to empower so many other women, and I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, well, and I was just going to say, let's talk about what you said for a minute. And I think that comes back to the word balance, right? We're all talking about balance. But I think in that is we are innately the nurturers. We are innately the caretakers. That's in our DNA. That's what we're designed to do. And that's fabulous. I love that.
yeah,
I think what has
me too.
happened over yeah, but I think what has happened over time though is it's almost become this badge of honor to show how busy we are and all the things we're doing and we're running little Johnny and Mary here and there and this and that, and it's just all of these things that we think we need to be doing, when if we take a step back and look at our life whole in a complete picture, maybe some of those things are not as important or don't need to be there. We can sort of dial back, but I think there's sort of this shame almost attached to it, that if
Yeah,
we dial back and we're not as busy as our neighbor
yeah,
or our best friend or what's going on, then there's something we're not doing enough, which is complete and utter crap. That's not true. And for those women that are doing that, hats off to you, and that's great. But when I was really sitting in the moment of my guilt, and where was that mom guilt coming from? I realized I have two daughters and a son. I didn't want any of them to sacrifice themselves to not give what they need for
mm,
them. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm the best role model they have. How do I show them and let go of this guilt that they shouldn't be putting themselves last? They should be the ones to have that education to take care of themselves. So, and we're talking bigger picture, right? So when they're older, they don't become a burden to their children, but then they also break the cycle and teach their children how to take care of themselves. I mean, this is, domino after domino that we really need to be sitting with. And so once I arrived at that place, the mom guilt, now again, I'm still human and I do struggle with it a little bit, but when I'm able to put it in perspective, I'm able to be okay and almost again empowered with, I'm going to do this because I'm not just doing it for myself. This
mm,
self-care is threefold. And that's where you kind of push through that barrier of that guilt.
absolutely. I love it. And this is exactly what I see in my practice all the time. Like women, when they are pregnant, they are they want to do everything they can to nourish their baby. Yet they find it so hard to simply
Mhm.
do it for themselves. Yeah. And this is pretty much what you are describing. And I would love to see, and I completely agree with you that, you know, by understanding that when we actually take ourselves first and nourish ourselves, we nourish everyone else because we are the role models to our children. And this is also the only way I often can help others to nourish themselves. But
Mm.
wouldn't it be great if we didn't need all of this? Like if we
Oh,
just
yes.
had the right and the autonomy and I don't know, that'd be just normal that we actually need to nourish ourselves to be the best versions of us. Full stop.
And I think part of that answer is, especially as a woman, we deal with a lot of shortcomings in self-belief and self-esteem. And so taking care of others is sort of a distraction so we don't have to put the energy into ourselves because, whoa, don't open that room, right?
Yeah.
So we use it as a distraction. And so it's still fulfilling us. And we're thinking that we are contributing and doing the things that we need to do. But I also think again, I go back to, the soccer mom that's running all around and having coffee with her girlfriend and listing all these things that they're doing, and they wear it as a badge of honor, but they're missing this big picture of themselves.
Yeah.
And they, again, it could be, trauma that they had in their childhood. It could be all of these things that they're trying to distract from, they're trying to get away from. And it shouldn't be. And there should be no shame attached to, I need to sit with myself for a little bit and, what's going on with me? And we should want that more. But it's so easy to be like, well, I have a meeting and I have this and I have to go do this and, doctor's appointments and whatever. And so that becomes our pride almost versus putting it into ourselves.
Absolutely. And I feel it's also um, the momentum our society has, because fact is, we are not supported in family communities anymore, or
No.
most of
Yeah.
us aren't. Like
Yeah.
we are running 10 jobs ourselves now, whereas beforehand we had family support. There was the
Mhm.
grandmother, there was the auntie, and it all made sense and it all worked. And now we are having these high paid jobs and having the children at the same time, doing it everything ourselves. And this is normal and this is, what we all doing. But I love that you touched upon the underlying possibly negative self-beliefs, trauma, or whatever else is going on underneath, so that we can't really feel into our true self and what we need. So I feel it's multi-layered. Like there's the society, which is kind of telling us this is what is life now and this is beautiful and this is good, so we trying to do this, and then at the same time it also helps us to not look deeper and understand what do we truly need, or what are we
Mhm.
longing for, which is hard.
That's hard. Well, and that right there, even having the permission to ask ourselves, what do we need, has been taken out of the equation. And I'm
Mm,
sure I might make some people mad when I say this, but when you're talking about the society level, we have been sold this lie that women can have it all.
mm,
And there are parts of that that are true. And this is not to put anyone down. I believe you should go after what you want. But in that lie, you have to, I mean, even if you're just looking at it mathematically, you cannot be 100% to everything you put into. Something is going to suffer somewhere,
yeah,
whether that's you, your family, your job, something is going to suffer somewhere. So, this lie we've been told that you can do it all, you can have it all. Sure, we've shown we can, but at what cost?
yeah,
What is the cost
yeah,
of that lie? And that's where society, I feel, has gotten it wrong.
yeah. And why would we want to do it all?
I
And then
don't want to do it
clearly our
all.
physiology is different. So our hormones are very different to those of a man, and they are actually vulnerable. And we see that. I mean, of course, there's more to it because of all the toxicity around us. But I also believe like all this doing and striving and ambition and pushing ourselves has a huge toll on our hormones.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so going back to your topic, actually, because I'm so curious, we can chat forever about everything, I feel. So what can women do to understand more about their physiology in terms of cardiovascular health?
So first, let's start with a little bit of education, right? One in five women will suffer some sort of cardiac event. Okay. Now that's huge. That's huge. The other part to that is cardiovascular disease kills more women as a whole than all cancer combined. Okay. So we're talking stats that are not talked about. We are talking things that women are not talking about because we tend to think of ourselves as a little bit healthier in that realm than men when we are just as at risk, if not more, because you talk about the hormones and we all know how crazy that can be, right? So the first and the other thing to understand in that, like I had mentioned earlier, it's as a cumulative effect. We start accumulating the damage, if you will, by the time we have our first menstrual cycle.
Mm,
From there, depending on if you had birth control, if you had some sort of all of these things that are changing your hormones, to then we get into middle age. And again, if we've run this rat race for 25 years, you have and stress is not talked about enough. Yes, as a society as a whole, we're being more introduced to it, but the things to do to combat that. And I think there's sort of, I don't want to say a negative connotation, but I think that's the right way to describe it is when somebody says, I'm so stressed out, I don't think they really fully understand what they're saying.
mm,
And it's your body trying to get you to time stop. We need to just be for a moment. And I not only do I not think people want to recognize that, they don't want to stop. They want
mm.
to keep going, because we take advantage of the health we have until we don't have it anymore.
Yeah,
So we push our bodies so forward. Our bodies are amazing machines. They try to adapt, they try to overcome, they try to heal themselves with the copious amounts of caffeine and everything that you're putting into it, and it's fighting against all this stuff. It's still going, it's still
yeah,
working
I
until it
know.
isn't, right? And so I think that's the fundamental thing to start with to understand. From that, we're talking very simple steps that you can really watch for, including, when you have a checkup with your doctor, and this is again, aside from my views of conventional medicine, but the thing that doctor can offer is either to get a sonogram for your carotid artery or get an EKG for what your heart is doing. Those are machines that we don't have readily accessible. You need to go to the doctor to get those. And those are two tests that I very much recommend
Mhm.
just to see a starting point, right? From there, you can pivot and go naturally, and you need to make sure you're hydrating well. Now, I know this is a buzzword and everybody thinks they're doing it, but water alone does not hydrate you.
Mm,
You need to have a carrier, and that is sodium. And people, that's a dirty word. No, I'm low salt. I don't take any sodium. Well, that's too bad because our bodies need the salt. It's actually sugar that is terrible for us, but the sodium, now again, I'm not talking about the sodium on the potato chip that you want to lick, but the sodium as an electrolyte is a carrier that actually penetrates your organs, your vital organs, and your muscles. And that's what is hydrating your body. So water enough isn't alone. So it's really, really crucial that you start there. From there, you need to make sure that you're hitting the crucial vitamins, your vitamin B6, all of the ones in the B6 family. Those are very crucial. And then we talked about sun, vitamin D, whether you're getting it naturally or you have to take a supplement. All when you go in, there's this treatment center here. It's Cancer Center for America, something like that. I'll have to look at exactly what it's called. But the first thing those doctors tell their patients, the very first thing they tell them is how deficient in vitamin D they are.
mm,
So that is something that we need lots of, and we need to make sure that our vitamin D receptors are turned on and that we're getting the right nutrients for that. From there, you build, you watch, you take time to find out what your stress management is. If you need to do breathing exercises, if it's prayer, if it's meditation, you find out what works for you,
mm,
but you do it consistently. Once a week at 10 minutes is not going to cut it. Your body needs to get into a rhythm that it knows at this certain time, you're going to go into a relaxed state.
Mm.
Whatever, and if it is only 3 minutes, but if it's 3 minutes a day, that's better than you can do, just doing it once a week. And that sets your mind, and that quietness and that calmness, your nervous system will start to regulate and then you can sort of go again, right? Then you're giving it a little bit more energy to go again. And this is not to say that people with, predisposed conditions or things like that, this is obviously there's deeper things to talk about. But what if we're talking about just the main things you can do, that's where you got to start.
Mm. I love it. I think what I also see, which is very hard, is that when we are in the middle of that rat race, when our cortisol levels are already really high, we are getting used to them being high, and we don't necessarily have the tools or know how to recognize where we are at. So,
And then we operate with the dysregulated nervous system, and that
exactly,
becomes the norm. And then we
exactly.
add caffeine to that and wonder why we have a headache.
And wonder why we get more and more fatigued. Exactly.
And
And
irritable.
depleted. Yeah. Um, and have cravings and our
Yes.
hormones get more out of
Well, I was going to say, and
control.
then you throw the hormones
Yeah.
in there, and
Yeah.
we're fighting a losing battle for
Yeah.
sure. But but I think it can be fought. I think there is,
Oh,
and
yeah.
these are, and it doesn't have to be extensive, and you don't have to spend hours and hours with it,
Exactly.
but it needs to be habitually done. You have to track it and consistently give your body that time, because that's the bank that you're investing in for your longevity. And if you're giving it, not that much time, I mean, then the outcome, the long term is not that good. I mean, it has to be a bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. So I love what you said just there. Now, do you want to pay into your bank account, or are you just consistently depleting? We
Taking
all
out.
know what that does. It doesn't bring the best version of ourselves if we are highly in debt. And as much as we close our eyes to that and try to ignore, it will, find you. And yeah.
It
Um,
does, and I can speak to that. It finds you.
yeah. And I would like to ask you, so what was the reason for your heart attack? What was your diagnosis, if you don't
Yeah,
mind going
so
there?
yeah, my heart attack was so I am a type 1 diabetic. That is an autoimmune disease. It's
Yeah.
unlike type 2. And so I've been diagnosed with that since I was 15. And I will be honest, in the beginning, I was sort of rebellious again in it. I was a teenager and I didn't want to take care of myself. So there had been damage done in my early teens to my heart that I was unaware of. So
Yeah.
that's a big part of it. But the secondary part of it was stress.
Yeah.
And with the uncontrolled blood sugars, it did cause plaque to build up, which was the reason for the stint. But it was not for the standard, what they tell you, of high cholesterol and high blood pressure,
Yeah.
which was very important to me, because what that did for me was make me realize, well, those aren't the only things that can cause a heart attack. And again, going back to stress, they don't tell you, while your body is trying to cope with the stress that you've been given, that's also cumulative.
Yeah.
And these are things that, whether it's trauma, PTSD, whatever, that is still sitting in your body. And if you are hanging on to that and not getting rid of that, it's building somewhere, my friends. It is somewhere in your body. And you have to get it out, whether that's, different modality practices, talking with a therapist, whatever that's going to do, but just ignoring it, just pretending, oh, you're fine. And maybe you are, but your physical part is not. It still has it somewhere. You've got to deal with it. You have to. And so mine was a combination of that, under massive amount of stress. And my body just said, That's it. This is it. I can't take it anymore. You have to change, because we're done doing what we can do."
Mm. Yeah.
So I flipped everything, and it took a while. In cardiac recovery, they gave me the standard American cocktail of a statin, baby aspirin, low blood pressure medicine. I had none of those ailments. So it actually made me feel worse
Yeah.
than I had before the heart attack because I didn't need those medicines. And then as I started to go down my own rabbit holes and do my own research, and I can't stress enough to become your own personal advocate in whatever field you would need to be, scream it from the rooftops. You have to stick up for yourself. And as I started to learn the food they were trying to tell me to eat, the way they wanted me to exercise, and the medicine they wanted me to take, I felt like I woke up out of this fog and I was like, they're wrong. And I have the utmost respect for emergency medicine. Obviously, they did save my life. That's wonderful. But the maintenance of medicine that we're dealing with, you have to search on your own, whether that's functional medicine, wellness coaches like yourself, whatever it is, you have to go behind the Oz curtain and find different ways because what they're doing is not going to help you. It's not.
Absolutely. I agree. So our medical system is wonderful for acute situations. And same
Yes.
here. I'm so grateful. They saved my life. I don't want I don't want a nutrition coach like myself, a health coach, or any other
Right.
therapist to come and try and help me, or with
A
yoga or
hundred
Ayurveda
percent.
when
Yes.
my brain is bleeding. So I'm
I totally agree with
I'm
that.
eternally
Yes.
grateful. But in terms of prevention or helping our bodies to reset, to really come back to this amazing ability of healing themselves, unfortunately, there is no training as yet in our
Right.
medical systems how to do that. And I think the point that you made is so important to me. I love what you said, that be your own healers again. Like, really take responsibility for your own bodies. Don't just believe what doctors tell you. And I know this is kind of tricky. And I'm not saying, if something is helping you or if you need a medication for right now to jump off it. That's not what I'm saying. I want to be very, very
Right.
clear. So
Yes.
always
100%.
be
Yes.
safe, but there are so many amazing things that you can do for yourself that will actually help to reset, while taking medication is just a bridge. It will help with the symptoms and give you some time, but it doesn't address the root cause. So there,
It's a Band-Aid.
your
It's a
body,
Band-Aid.
yeah, your body is still not fixed as such. Your body is not whole. Your body is still having some misalignment or is an imbalance. Yeah, so there's still something going on. So have the courage to really listen to your body and become your own healer again. Your body is so amazing. So I love that point that you are making. I also just want to reiterate, because I know that sometimes this can feel just so overwhelming when there's something going on and you've been trying forever to get on top of it, and you've heard so many things, you've maybe tried so many things, also of stuff from the internet, and nothing seems to work, or you are completely confused and your life is just super stressful. And you said that start a little. It doesn't have to be extensive and time intensive. There are super small steps that if you just take that one step, and it might take a minute out of your day, truly, but if you do that consistently, it will build your confidence, and compounding, it will have a huge effect on your body, and then you can go further. And you said that, I just wanted to unpack it and make it really, really clear, because
No,
I
I love that.
so often see that it looks like such a big mountain and so undoable. And it's not. It's absolutely not. Like, our bodies are, they blow me away. Like, years of not nourishing ourselves and then just giving them one thing, and they are so relatively quickly able to really reset. You'll be surprised.
Yeah, no, you use that word reset, and I think that, that's what you're saying. if you give the body the correct tools,
Mm.
it will reset. It 100, it wants to reset.
Yeah.
You just need to give it the right tools to do that. And when you're talking about these small gains, absolutely, even 1% of a gain is still going to make an impact on your overall health. And
Yeah.
if you keep doing it and keep doing it, that 1% turns into 5%, turns into 10%. So your body will, because it wants to keep moving forward. It wants to get back to homeostasis. That's its job. Just got to give it the right stuff.
Yeah, and life is accumulative. So this means whatever you do has an accumulative effect. And if you use it for yourself in a nourishing way, this too has a beautiful healing accumulative effect. If you choose the other way, maybe not so helpful over long
Yeah,
term. I would love to
100%.
hear, what else did you do to come back to your strength, to your power, and maybe talk a little bit about diet. Like, what did your diet look before like? What does your diet look like now? And then also, if we still have the time, in terms of movement, did you change anything about your movement routine? Yeah, talk us through this.
Yeah. So to speak to nutrition first, um, before the heart attack, having to watch my blood sugars, and again, not doing so great as a young teenager, but growing up and learning a little bit more, it was really just try to have low carb diet and just watch my, and the doctors at the time, they never said anything about my heart. They were always like, make sure you watch your kidneys. So to me, protein was a little bit of a scary word because they always said you don't want to have end up with too much protein in your kidneys. Again, being uneducated, realizing that's not how that kind of protein works. So I was just sort of standoffish. So it wasn't a, fatty, trans fat, terrible diet, but it wasn't what my body needed, right? Everybody's different and you have to find what the right foods for
Yeah.
you to put into, right? So when I was in cardiac recovery, they put me on a complete, and again, everybody's different. I've heard stories that this works for. They put me though on a vegan diet with lots of soy consumption, lots of things that were highly, and especially at my age, were highly estrogenic. They had been used to dealing with patients that were much older than me. So maybe that sort of diet works for someone much older because they don't have to worry about the estrogen intake. I was feeling terrible. And as you start to educate and you read labels and things that you're putting in, the amount of seed oils that are sometimes in these foods, and just you're thinking that you're eating healthy when really you're not. And so educating myself in that, to then I did the extreme and went full carnivore, which it made me feel better. I was iron deficient. I needed those vitamin B6. Like that was a good switch, but it didn't need to be so extreme. So coming full circle, I'm now just more whole food based. I try to stay away from seed oils. It's so sad. Here we have the American Heart Association, and they put a stamp on canola oil as it's heart healthy. And that's not
Mm,
true. It's
mm,
terrible that they're
yeah.
putting that stamp on it.
Yeah.
So just eliminating that in of itself, and people are like, oh my gosh, you had a heart attack and you eat butter? Yes, I do, because I didn't have high cholesterol. And besides the fatty acids that are in the butter, my body needs, right? So, but having to push through all the noise, having to hear all the opinions, because they've all been told the same thing we've been told.
Mm.
And so I understand it was different. But going back to just whole foods as the most raw organic food you can put into your body, whether plants, fruits, protein, that is the best way for our bodies to consume what it needs. Now, again, I've heard vegans, I've interviewed vegans that completely stand by it, and that's great. That's why elimination diets are so great. You have to learn what works for you. I found out I had a gluten sensitivity that I had never known. So all of these things that I was basically checking the boxes off myself, you have to put in the work. You do.
Mm.
And do recommend working with a nutritionist because I should have started there, but you have to learn to read the labels as well. So that was a big part. And
Can
then
I just quickly
switching.
say something about
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah.
So it's very interesting that they would, give you so much soy food, because we know that particularly soy is really hard to digest. And when you're just coming out of a major heart attack, very likely that your gut is not super strong, especially after all those medications. So of course, it's very hard for you to actually process the soy without feeling shitty. Like, again, this is a sign that no, this is not right for your body, which you realize. And also my body is not able to deal with that the right way. And I love that you kind of, found your way to whole foods, because I also don't believe in any of these extreme things. So yes,
And I agree
absolutely.
with that. Yes.
I have
Yes.
100% respect for the vegan diet. I guess if I have to put myself into a label, which I'm not, I'm closer to that way of eating in terms of not choosing to eat a lot of animal protein. But in saying that, I'm not advocating for a vegan diet for everyone, because we are also different. I'm also not advocating for a carnivore diet or for a keto diet or for any other diet, because extremes are really, really good for our bodies. And also, it really always depends where's your gut health at. And also then you just mentioned, you've got a gluten sensitivities. This too suggests your gut health is not quite right just yet.
100.
So,
Yep.
and you did that beautifully. Like, you felt off on the vegan diet, so you switched and then noticed, okay, it doesn't have to be so extreme. So what I guess I'm also trying to say is, there can be phases in our life where we maybe need to go more extreme to replenish, to
Yes.
nourish. And as you said, you were depleted in your iron stores and probably lots of other things. And so the carnivore diet served you well, but long run, any kind of extreme diet is not very healthy. And just to finish the thought on the vegan diet, I feel the vegan diet is often very misunderstood and is actually highly processed. So I just want you to be really mindful of, if it comes out of a package, just because it is labeled vegan and possibly, healthy, doesn't
Oh,
mean
yeah,
that it's also
it
the
is.
right food for you. So going back to those whole foods.
Right,
Absolutely.
right. And again, just talking about what they stamped heart health on for
Mm,
people that, are looking for that heart healthy stamp, they're thinking the canola oil is going to do that for them, and it just isn't. It just
yeah.
isn't. And so with that, um, learning my body uh motion. Now, before that, I had done several like 3K, 5K runs. I had done a big relay race for the Ragnar. There was a lot of things that I was involved in. I was moving, but I wasn't moving in the right way. Now, don't get me wrong, cardio exercise is very important. But one of the key things I was missing was strength training.
Mm,
And I realized I was very weak. Now,
mhm,
yes, obviously because of what had happened, but on a whole, even before, I was weak.
mm,
And so after when I'm in rehab, the cardiac rehab, and they had me pick up, I don't know, a 3 pound weight, I couldn't lift it.
mm.
And this was a big thing to like, what? Like, this is not okay. You have to be able to pull your body and push your body.
Yeah.
And so a pull up and a push up is so incredibly important. And I couldn't do either. I couldn't do either. And it was so eye-opening for me. Like, what did I do? I used to ride horses. I could do all this stuff, and it went away very quickly. It
Mm,
went away very quickly. If you don't use it, you lose it. So
yeah.
my muscles were screaming to be strong. And going through this journey, I started to weight lift. And started out very small. Like I said, I couldn't do 3 pound weights. So I didn't have these hour-long weightlifting sessions in the gym because I couldn't do that. So again, we're talking 1% gains, small, 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 that built over time, that I now can say I can do a push-up, I can do a pull-up, and then some, but that takes time. That takes time. On top of the other layer I added was mobility.
Mm,
And I think as women, we often hear Elderly women, they'll break a hip or they, break a bone, and then, they may not ever come out of the hospital because they're just very frail and brittle. You're always hearing families, oh, grandma needs to rest, let her take it, let her rest. Like, no, grandma needs to move.
Yeah.
We all need to move. We need to go out and walk, whatever you can do. But that mobility, the stretching, strength training combined with, yes, then the cardio exercises, it all has to marry each other.
Yeah.
And those systems are so important that's how it was that, along with the nutrition, along with the mindset, and doing this whole work of I was completely missing. I always say I'm not the before picture. I'm not the after picture. I'm the line in the middle that separates the two because I'm still on my journey.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll ever arrive because that means I've stopped. I want to keep moving. And so
Yeah.
I think if people meet themselves where they're at, whatever you can do, whatever that looks like, no pressure. This is not supposed to be stress for you. This is supposed to be an outlet to get your body to reset, and be kind to yourself. Be loving to yourself. If you can only do a 3-pound weight, start there because it will grow gradually.
Mm. Absolutely. And thank you so much for sharing. And I ask you this question because I often hear, or there's this huge discussion at the moment, weights over cardio. And I'm like, hang on there. Um, in a few years, it will be again cardio over
Right.
weights. And I'm like, you're missing the point, and that's beautiful. You beautifully said it. Our bodies need all of this. Our body need a certain amount of cardio, whatever this looks like for you. Doesn't need to be running and crazy interval training. It can be regular walking. It can be horse riding. It can be bike riding. But our bodies need cardiovascular training. And yes, our bodies need to be strong, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
our bodies need also mobility and balance, because if we don't have that, we are so much more likely to fall. And also, as we stiffen up a little bit, we are just not able to move as graciously through our lives. So thank you so much for sharing this. I really appreciate it.
Yes.
I know we have to come to an end, so I would love to, you've given us so much wisdom, but could you please share with my audience 3 golden nuggets, just 3 quick things that will help them to uplift their lives?
Definitely. The first thing, I think I kind of touched on it a little bit ago, but that would be meet yourself where you're at. Give yourself plenty of grace and plenty of self-love, and give yourself the self-belief that you can do it. No
Mm,
matter where you're starting at, it can be done. Just be patient with yourself. Be kind to yourself. The other thing that I would say is pay attention to, like you were talking about, the fads that are out there, the most, up and coming diet, the most up and coming way you can exercise. All of it is important. You mentioned the cardio. Yes, we need that to build lung capacity and heart strength. You need those things. But it's, again, we talk about balance. So be kind to yourself, have balance in your life. And I would say the third thing would be, it doesn't have to be hard.
mm,
It's a journey, and the journey is messy, but it doesn't have to be hard. You can do this. You just have to start. And that's the hardest part, of starting.
beautiful. I love it. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so Everything's Messy Wellness on Instagram. I have a podcast, Everything's Messy, where we talk about all this wonderful stuff.
Awesome.
Facebook, same thing, Everything's Messy, because again, life's messy. Everything's messy. So that's sort of the theme. And then the underlying theme to that is we like to find the strength through the mess. What are you doing? If you have a messy story, that's great. And what did you find through that mess? What's your strength that you brought out of it?
Mm,
So yeah, look me up. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from anybody, and keep it messy.
awesome. And do you offer online consultations?
So I'm just starting that.
Mhm.
You can book a quick 15-minute call with me if you'd like, and we can go through what might be helpful with you. Just again, be patient because I am just starting that, but I'm not going to turn anybody away. And if anything, we'll have a good laugh. We'll have a messy laugh. So.
I love it. And this in itself is healing. Is there anything I haven't asked you today yet you wish I had?
Oh gosh, no, I knew we were gonna have a great conversation. It's been fabulous. I've loved every second of it.
Mm. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for empowering yourself through this journey and now spreading the love, spreading the empowerment. I'm deeply grateful for you and for
Thank
helping me to make our world a healthier, happier place. You're amazing. Stay
thank you, and
awesome.
yes, thank you, and thank you so much for having me. I love what you're doing and your work, and you're amazing, and I'm so grateful to be in this space. So thank you for the opportunity.
My absolute pleasure. Keep glowing, beautiful.
Thank you.
If you love and enjoyed this episode, then please do me a favor and share it with just one other person who you think would greatly benefit from it. I know that you were born to live your best life. Feel absolutely amazing in your precious body, your brilliant mind, and your boundless soul. So, what are you still waiting for? Please make sure you do. I'm your biggest cheerleader. I believe in you. Keep glowing. Much love.